U.G.L.Yeshua.
The last one we're gonna touch on is Buddhism. So long story short, we're gonna touch with the founder. Like Buddhism, the religion Buddhism doesn't have a specific God. They don't have a God, but they do have a founder, which is forgive me his name, Gautama Siddhartha. So a little bit of history from that. Like I said before, when Ian was touching on the Hinduism, they stem from the same things. Right. So legend goes like this: that Siddhartha is Siddhartha. He's from India, which is where it stems from. He's a prince. His mother and his father are kings and queens. They're very wealthy people. They have everything. So what happens is when he was young. Now there's two different stories here. One of the folklore stories is that an angel came to his mother and told him that he's going to be a great king or a great redeemer or something like that. And then another one goes that they told his father, if you keep him here, he's going to be great for India. But if you let him go out, he's going to save the world and become a monk. So that's what the story goes. So there's more I want to touch on as far as that. But another thing I wanted to say about him is, so his whole life, he has everything he wants. So it got to the point where his father wanted to keep him at the palace around that area. So he would give him women. He had so many concubines. He had everything he wanted. But it got to a point, I forgot at what age, but as a young man somehow, where he wanted to explore things. He wanted to go out and see what things were like on the outside. Right. So his father knew he couldn't keep him there like that. So what he did, he's like, I'm going to let you go. But what he did, his father sent his servants out there to go clean the roads up, clean everything up, make sure everything is nice and cool out there, make sure there's no sick people out there, make sure all the roads are clean. So he goes and see, things out here like how they're in here, and we're going to come back home. So what happened was, I guess plans didn't go so well. So as Siddhartha went out, there's 4 things that they go by, and it's called, bear with me 1 second. When he went out to the road, it's called the 4 passing sites. So the 4 things go like this, the 4 things that he saw. The first one was he saw a person of old age. So at that moment, he's like, whoa, people get old. You know what I'm saying? So he keeps on going on his journey. The second one, he saw a person who was sick, sickness and in pain. He's like, wow, these people get sick? You know what I mean? The third one, he came across death, a corpse, like a funeral type thing. So at that moment, he's like, okay, people get old, they get sick, and then they die. He was like, what kind of life is this? You know what I'm saying? So the last one, which is one of the ones that kind of switched things around, he saw a monk. So as him seeing the monk is where he was like, that all these things going on, old age, sickness, death, and this monk is here calm, just smooth, not worried about nothing. He's like,
this was his first encounter with a monk.
That's his first encounter with a monk, correct. So he, at that moment, he's like, oh, okay. So from there is where we start to move on to what he does. Now, this thing is called the, I'm going to give you guys a name. So basically, he goes home that night. He goes home. He looks at his family. He had a wife at this time, and he had a son at this time. So while everybody was sleeping, he takes one last look at them, and he's out. Wow. So he's done. So he's going to start his own thing. So he's looking at basically like, okay, sickness and all that, I'm not repping that. I want to get to a point where I can beat all of that, where I could be in a state of enlightenment. So that's why when it comes to this thing right here, it says that Buddhism is a path to enlightenment. So I'm going to touch on some more things, but like his story is just crazy. So when it comes to Buddhism, they did a lot of, meditation. Right. So what they would do, like what Buddha would do when he first started, he had met some people. They're not monks, but I forgot the name. So what they would do, they try to beat their bodies to submission. So they wouldn't eat, they wouldn't take a shower, they would try to go through pain. And it got to a point where Buddha, he wasn't called Buddha yet, but he got to a point where he started to do these things. And this guy was so skinny. There's a picture that's out there on the internet where they depict this, a statue of him. All you see is his bones. Yeah, I've seen it. He got so skinny, like from eating. It said he will only eat 6 grains of rice a day. Wow. 6 grains of rice a day. Wow. But it got to a point after that where he was like, yo, this really can't be it. So he starts to get to a point where he's like, yo, there's got to be something else that's better than this instead of people killing your body. So he gets to the point where he starts to, then people started to call him a traitor. The dudes he was with, those the 5 dudes, I forget the name. And they called him a traitor. He basically just left off and went and started to do his own thing. some of the writings, they don't have they have just specific writings. They don't have one specific holy book like a lot of these things do. But I'm gonna read you some of the names. One of the name is, and forgive me for the mispronunciation. So one of them is called the Masfatu, and this is a great story, a collection covering Buddha's life story. The Jataka Tales, which is 550 stories of the former lives of the Buddha. And the other one is Triptaka, 3 baskets, and the Tantras. So those are some of the writings right there. And like my brother Ian spoke about before, Buddhism and Hinduism, they kind of follow the same thing. They believe in all the karma, the reincarnation. Right. They believe that the more time you spend with yourself and meditating and just kill everything outside, come in one with yourself, be enlightened. And when you reach that point of enlightenment, that's when you become a Buddhist. But the thing is, Buddha, a lot of people get it messed up because a lot of people, they worship Buddha as a god, but those are never his intentions.
Right.
The intentions of those are when you reach that enlightenment, you become Buddha yourself. Right. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Yeah,
so anybody can become a
Right.
Anybody can become
like the term Buddha is almost like full enlightenment.
Anybody could become a Buddhist. So I wanted to touch on the things, some of the things that they follow. One of the things is called the Four Noble Truths. So number 1 is the truth of suffering. Number 2 is the truth of the cause of suffering. Number 3 is the truth of cessation of suffering. Number 4 is the truth of the path to cessation of suffering. So I want to read a little bit off each one. I'm not going to read all of them. So number 1, which is the truth of suffering, is Buddha declared that this world is full of suffering, that actual existence, including birth, sickness and death and suffering and sorrow. This is called the truth of suffering. So as he went to the walk, he saw these things like, oh, suffering, like this is crazy. Like this can't be life. It's got to be something better to this, you know? The other one, which is called the truth of the cause of suffering, which is the cause of human suffering lies in ignorance and karma. Ignorance and its resulting karma have oftentimes been called desire or craving, that Buddha declared. The other one is the third one, which is the truth of cessation of suffering. The extinguishing of all human ignorance and karma results in a state known as nirvana. Now, nirvana, this is what I want to touch on. Nirvana is like the ultimate state you can reach. So like when you sitting and meditating and when you reach these higher consciousness and you become that, you get that title as Buddhist. One of the things that you can reach is after you die, you reach the nirvana, and that's like the ultimate point you could get to in Buddhism. You know what I'm saying? They don't
believe the ultimate God.
It's like the ultimate God for them.
Right.
What is that? You just feel real good?
No. It breaks the cycle. It breaks their reincarnation cycle because they have the same beliefs as him.
Yeah, they become one. They become one with like the nature and one with the energy and one with everything. That's like their ultimate goal for a Buddhist. You know what I'm saying?
A good way to look at it is like if you guys are familiar with the Avatar from what is the Nickelodeon?
Yeah.
The Nickelodeon show. The Avatar is, it has a recycled life force.
Right. And
each one learns more and more information about the last thing. So that's pretty much how they do it.
Right.
How they believe it. They believe that the more, whatever you've learned in your first lifetime carries over to your next lifetime, and all of that information
so
just
that
develops.
concept from Hinduism crosses over
straight to Buddhism.
Right. Yep.
I'm not sure if they, if they worship many gods or anything like that. I didn't.
No, it's really not many gods. It's basically like the higher consciousness. Yeah, you know what I'm saying?
It's
That
just
you reach
the
that
ways of
nirvana.
Buddha.
Right.
And one thing I want to touch about, like, so
It's different.
yeah, Buddhism stems from Hinduism, which is in India at that time, or this time it's called Nepal. So he left from there and started this new thing. But right now, Buddhism, this is big in all like the Asian, in the Asian world. So for Japanese, Chinese, Korea, this is where this thing stems at and is real big.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So that religion. So I just want to throw that in there. And the last one, when we're talking about the Four Noble Truths, is the truth of the path to cessation of suffering. And it says the truth of the path to cessation of suffering is the Noble Eightfold Path. Now, the Noble Eightfold Path is another thing that they go by.
Is unorthodox.
All right, so I'm not going to read those. You can read those. I won't read the definition, but number 1 is right views, right thoughts, right speech, right conduct, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right meditation. Buddha, he died. They got it marked down at 80 years old, I believe. And the story goes that he was poisoned by one of his followers,
Right.
which was an older man.
Wow.
Yeah, there was a story, and before he died, that there was somebody on his team, I forgot the name, that happened to be his cousin. Basically betrayed him, and they say he was the Judas of Buddhism. So
He was jealous of him.
he was jealous of him.
Completely jealous.
And I guess him becoming a priest, a Buddhist to his cousin, had supposed powers, but it wasn't as strong as Buddha, Siddhartha. So one time his cousin, this is where the elephant story comes through. I'm gonna leave it as this. One time his cousin met somebody who handled elephants and all that stuff, and he had a big elephant, and he wanted the guy to send an angry elephant to Buddha's path and kill him. So what happened, as Buddha's walking through the path, the Buddha noticed that the elephant was trying to come at him. He got into his mind state, started doing what he did, and then the elephant bowed down to him. So that's where they get, if you ever see the picture with the man body and the elephant head. I know in Hinduism it has a different history, but this is where it comes from when it comes to Buddhism.
And Hindu history, the I
It's
forget
crazy,
which
it's crazy, right?
I forget which god it is. That's like the god of destruction or whatever.
Oh, is that not Shiva? Shiva.
Shiva supposedly cut that god's head off, and that's the replacement head.
Wow.
The elephant head, and that head. I mean, it really doesn't say, like it has any like special thing to it. It's just like that's the head. That's what he replaced his head with. His original head with. With an elephant head.
Hey, yo, real quick.
He's the elephant of obstacles, or the god of obstacles.
So they have a great name for this. They call the time where he went back to see his wife and his parents and his kid one last time and dipped off. They call that the Great Renunciation.
Right.
That's the Great Renunciation, where it's like the start of everything, start of Buddha. But yo, that thing is, man, like that's where we get the monks and everything. Because Buddha was a monk, he linked up with monks, he taught the monks, and as he knew when he got poisoned, he said when he got poisoned, he knew he was gonna die, so he passed it off to his followers, like, you got to keep my teachings going. So there's a lot more we could get on when it comes to this whole Buddhism thing, but you got to do your own research. So I
heard there's a lot of mixed information when it comes to Buddhism.
Yes, there's a lot of mixed information. That's why I said in the beginning, you may hear one story from here, you may hear one story from here. It's not that we're confusing things, but these are different stories that come down from their culture.
Yeah, so I remember coming across some research that they were saying like a lot of the information was completely destroyed because the temple was destroyed. And destroyed and robbed and this, that, the other thing. So a lot of their traditions, a lot of their sacred ways are completely lost because of all of the pillaging and stuff that happened to their temple.
Let me touch one last thing before we dip off from this. When he finally reached enlightenment, he was under a tree meditating. And that, because Buddha, they believe in like demons and stuff like that.
Right.
So he was meditating, and that there was the god of demons was trying to mess with him while he was meditating. So he sent demons at him. But they started shooting arrows at him, they said, but it didn't faze Buddha. He was still in his zone. Then after that, they tried to send, real talk, he was still in his zone. He was in his zone still. So they tried to, that same god demon tried to send like 3 demon women, try to seduce him, basically dancing all crazy and everything. Still didn't faze him. Then after that, he fought them off, and it was like, I'm done. And then that's when he reached a different place of enlightenment. At that moment, that's when he came to that enlightenment,
because he completely separated himself from any desire, especially if they came to him that's considered an
and
desire.
if you go to India, they still have that place up, and it's fenced up where that was the tree, and people go there and like sit there and worship the tree he was there. They said that's the tree that Buddha was under. You know what I mean? So so some ill stuff, bro. There's so much more, but
I know one thing. All of this sounds different. Ain't nothing similar here. You know what I mean? Buddha, even Buddha in Hinduism, where Buddha stems from Hinduism,
It's supposed to be the same.
it's supposed to be the same, but they still got differences. There's still differences thrown in there.
So where we're getting at with this, audience, listen, we just touched on 4 specific big religions that are out there in this world.
The biggest ones.
Besides
Christian.
Exactly, So we're gonna touch on that and everything that falls under Christendom another time. So what we're trying to get to is here, like, these people, these world leaders around the world say that we all worship the same God. Right. We may call them a different name, you're from a different country, a different culture, but ultimately we rep the same God. And no, we don't. As you can see, as the information that we gave you guys here, there's so much differences in all these other gods.
Ugly.